7Es, receiving students and teachers. Thank you. You may sit down. All right, 7Es and receiving students. I'd like you all to look up here. Receiving students, 7Es. By looking at this pattern, all right, I'd like you to give the rule. Now, who can tell me what do these numbers represent? Receiving students, 7Es. What do these numbers represent? 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. Receiving students. What do these numbers represent? Win?
Represent the boxes on the curtain.
Okay, thank you, Win. Win said the boxes. Yes? Boxes and curtains. Can you see any curtains here? Okay, good try, Win. Not curtains. What can we say about these? Sticks, or what do they form? Squares. Okay, receiving students? Let's say they form squares. Can you see? Okay, we have one square here. All right. Number 1 represents how many squares? 1. Number 2 represents how many squares? 2. Number 3? 3 squares. Okay. So the numbers, they represent square. They represent the number of squares. Okay. Now, as you can see that we've used sticks to form the squares. All right. So how many sticks form one square? Receiving students, how many sticks form one square? Okay, 4 sticks. And so now, who can tell us the rule? Receiving students, tell your teacher, what is the rule? The rule for this pattern here. All right, John?
Starts at 1 and goes up by 1 each time.
Okay, thank you, John. All right. John says starts with 1 and goes up by 1 each time. Is it correct? Yes. 7Es, receiving students?
Yes.
Are you sure? You start at 1 and you go up by 1 each time. Can you see, is that the rule here for this pattern? No. Okay, good try, John. Clement?
Start with 4 and add 4 each time. 3 each time.
Okay, thank you, Clement. All right, Clement said starts at 4 and add 3 each time. 7Es and receiving students, do you agree with Clement's answer? Starts at 4 and add 3 each time. Okay, let's see if Clement is correct. All right, every time, receiving students, sorry. Okay, we have 4. We start off with 4. Okay, 4 for 1 matchstick, and then 2 for 2 squares. How many sticks altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, okay? So 4 plus how many gives you 7? 3. 4 plus 3. Okay, let's see. How many sticks make up 3 squares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? 10 sticks makes up 3. So 7 here makes up 2 squares. 7 plus how many? 3 gives you or makes up 3 squares with 10 sticks. So the rule was, Clement's rule was correct. Start with 4 and add 3 each time. Okay, receiving students and 7Es. Okay, so how many sticks will the next pattern have? The next pattern. So here pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 3, okay, pattern 4. Receiving students, how many sticks will the next pattern have? Now you already know the rule, okay? You already know the rule for this pattern here. Okay, Ruthie? Receiving students, tell your teacher, what will the next pattern have?
13.
13. Okay, Ruthie says 13. Now, how did you get 13?
10 plus 3.
10 plus 3. That's what Ruthie said. Is she correct? Yes. Okay. So here, because pattern 3 has how many squares? Okay, it has 3 squares. And how many sticks make up those 3 squares? There are 10 sticks that make up the 3 squares. So in order to form the next 4 squares, how many sticks are you going to add? How many sticks will you add? 3. 10 plus 3 gives you 13 sticks, and it will make up 4 squares. So 10 plus 3, 13 sticks. Okay, receiving students? Because you already know the rule, start at 4, add 3 each time. Okay? So let's look at today's topic, receiving students and 7Es. Our topic for today is on sequences in diagrams. All right? Sequences in diagrams. So here we are using pictures, or we are using diagrams to form sequences. Okay? So lesson number 90, receiving teachers and students. All right. Okay, for this, when you're using the sequence, when you put the pattern, you can come up with a table, all right? You can come up with a table. You can come up with a table to spot the sequence or to identify the sequence. So you can say 1 square, how many matchsticks? 4. 4 matchsticks or 4 sticks. Number of squares, 2 squares, how many sticks? 7. Okay, and it continues. All right, so you can identify it easily in a table form. So if you have it, they say you have it like this, or you can also put it in a table form to identify the sequence easily. All right, we're going to move on to our learning activity. Our first learning activity, receiving students and 7Es. All right, here I have a diagram, okay, receiving students. And number 1, it says draw or make, okay, the next 2 patterns in this sequence. All right? Here, this sequence is in a form of a diagram. All right? Now it says Number 1, draw the next 2 patterns in this sequence. Now, receiving students, I reminded you in your previous lesson to get papers or colored pencils or crayons. And I'd like you to use those A4 papers, all right, to draw the next 2 patterns in this sequence, okay? So 7 is, receiving students, if you have your papers there in front of you, I'd like you, okay, in your groups or in pairs, you draw the next 2 patterns in this sequence. Now we'll just go through 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the first pattern, pattern 1. And then you can see the next pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Third pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you're going to draw the next 2 patterns. So if you have your papers stay in front of you, receiving students, 7 is, I'd like you to quickly draw the next 2 patterns. Okay, just show one amongst you. You can use your biros if you want to. Use the papers in front of you, receiving students. Not enough. Receiving students, if you don't have crayons, you can use your biros or your pencils, but make sure you draw them a bit bigger onto your paper. Okay, number 2, it says, explain how you got the next pattern, all right? Explain how to get the next pattern. 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay, have we finished 70s and receiving students? All right, let's just go through. All right. So you were to draw the next two patterns in this sequence here. So what were the next two? What would be the next two patterns? Can anyone show the class what they did, what they drew? Receiving students, you can show to the class what you drew. Let's have Tara. Okay, Tara. Okay, 70s receiving students, I'd like you to look at Tara's work. How did you get those two patterns?
Add 3.
Okay, so you added?
3.
Okay, so you added 3, all right? So let's show your pattern. So the first one, how many? How many dots in that Y? The first one.
13.
13. Okay, the others, did you get 13? Yes. Okay, and what about the next one?
16.
There's 16. So make sure you count, okay, like this one here, receiving students. So for this pattern, the next two patterns, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, 13. The next pattern, how many did we say? 16. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right. So what Tara said was add 3 each time. And you start off with how many? 4. Okay, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you add 3 each time. Just like our previous learning activity, our previous example. Okay, receiving students and 7Es. All right. Later on, I'll collect yours. Same with the receiving students. Receiving teachers, you collect their work later. Now I'd like us to complete our exercise quickly, receiving students and 7Es. All right, you only have this exercise. Number 1, A, B, and C. Here you are going to draw the next two patterns in this sequence. B, how many matches are there in each of the 5 patterns? And C, predict how many matches will be in the 10th pattern. Okay, so 7Es, please, receiving students, I'd like us to complete our exercise here on the screen. Okay, for this exercise, for number 1, you can draw them in your exercise books or in your workbook or on the papers that I gave you. Receiving students, you can do that exercise in your exercise books. Okay, 70s and receiving students, we should have finished by now. All right, 70s and receiving students, we're going to correct our exercise now. Okay. All right, number 1A, you are to draw the next two patterns in the sequence, okay? In that sequence. So receiving students, what would the next two patterns look like? Okay, can anyone show us or show to the class the next two patterns that they have drawn? 70s receiving students. Okay, 70s would like to show us what they have drawn. What the next two patterns would look like. Anyone here? Manuel, did you draw something? Okay, that's okay. All right, Donald. Okay, Donald will just show us what he drew for the two patterns. Okay, receiving students, if you drew your patterns on a piece of paper, on an A4 paper, you can show to the class what you drew, okay? And the students will confirm their drawings with yours. Okay, so Donald, can you just show us what you drew? How do your next two patterns look like?
Start by 3 and add 2 each time.
Okay, thank you, Donald. All right, I'm sure you others agree with Donald's answer. Receiving students. Okay, so your pattern should look something like this. You did something like this, then you are correct. So every time, remember, pattern 1 starts with 3. Okay, pattern 1 starts with 3. Pattern 2, there are 2 triangles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 matchsticks. So 3 plus how many gives you 5? 2. So here pattern 3, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 matchsticks. So from 3, 5, 7. So every time we are adding 2. So the pattern in there is add 2. Start at 3 and you add 2 each time. So pattern 4 and 5, you should have something like this. So pattern 4, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 triangles. Pattern 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 triangles. Pattern 4, how many matchsticks, receiving students? 11? 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Pattern 5, how many? 11. 9 plus 2 is 11. Okay. So that's it. Okay, so B, how many matches are there in each of the 5 patterns? How many matches are there in each of the 5 patterns? 11, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. See, predict how many matches will be in the 10th pattern. How many matches will be in the 10th pattern? Receiving students, 22. Some of you are saying 22, some of you are saying 19. Okay, I'd like you to, for C, I'd like you to do that, receiving students. like you to do that for your homework, and your teacher will correct it later with you, okay, receiving students. Same with you 7Es. Complete that for homework and we'll correct that later on. How many matches will be in the 10th pattern? Now again, when we can use sequences with pictures, all right? We can describe sequences using pictures or diagrams, okay? You do not only use sequences with numbers, but you also use sequences with diagrams or pictures. So I'd like you to just copy these 2 main points down, 7Es and receiving students, your summary for today's lesson. All right, so those are 2 summary points for today's lesson. When you understand how a sequence grows, for example, like this, using diagrams, you can predict the unknown terms, all right? So for example, you can, when you drew this pattern 1, 2, and 3, you already knew, okay, the sequence. You could easily identify pattern 4 and 5. All right, that has brought us to the end of our lesson, 7Es and receiving students. Our key phrase for today's lesson, sequences in diagrams. And in our next lesson, 7Es and receiving students, you'll be looking at function machines, lesson number 91, okay, and your materials needed for that lesson. Receiving teachers. Thank you very much, 7Es and receiving students, for your participation in today's lesson.